So, hey, how you doing, Todd?
Doing good. I had some questions about the stuff in the paper, so I called the Clay County clerk today and asked him, are those prices that are in the paper, do they include any fees? And the nice lady said, no, that's the base tax. That's the actual assessed tax value. All the fees that have been accumulating are in addition to that. But basically, let's just say that he owes a little over 4K already. So he's got a mess right now.
Well, I personally think it's like all just a hit job by you trolls and haters. That's what you're all doing. You're all just ganging up on him, just pretending to sell his property and shit.
And you can prove that how, Cisco? You can demonstrate that in what
Well,
way?
did he get an official government letter? No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. He got two.
I haven't seen it.
Why do you think he'd show it to you? They're required to send two notices.
Well, he never told me that he got one, so.
Well, so if he didn't tell you, then it didn't happen. Are you really that
you guys
dumb?
that put an ad out in the paper, I guarantee you that.
There's no ad in the paper. It's a list of delinquent properties. They're required by law to put those in the paper, so people
if you
can.
Look at the property. There's a street view. Anyone can take a picture of it.
Nobody's talking about a picture, Cisco. We're talking about what was in the paper. What was in the paper was a list of delinquent taxes for 2023. The reason it's under Alice Helton.
Just ganging up on him.
The reason it's under Alice Helton is because even if Vaughn did change the property to his name, that he did that in 2024. We're talking about 2023 assessed taxes, and those were assessed under Alice Helton's name. Hey, Secular, let me share my screen so we can show what a liar. See, that's what's that's on the Clay County clerk site. Beverly Kraft, she's the Clay County's clerk. Gosh, that's a terrible tongue twister. And you see what I highlighted there? 5 properties that say Helton Alice and how much that are owed, and there's a little description. What do you got to say about that, Cisco? Control, make Beverly Kraft put that up on the website.
You ever hear about Inspect Element?
Inspect Element.
Yep. Firefox.
So you're saying this is fake?
Could be edited. You never know.
Well, I mean,
I will
Todd,
link it.
Yeah, throw the link out there, Todd. I've seen this site as well.
There's the link if anybody wants to go look. clay.clerkinfo.net. If you think I made that up or if you think I added it to it, you can go in your own browser and you can see this stuff for yourself. Just scroll down to the H's, and there's 5 properties under Alice Helton.
Now, Todd, could it be possible that we have implanted a troll into the Clay County clerk's office? I mean, we set up a doctor years ago.
Yeah, maybe Beverly Kraft is one of us. I guess it's possible. Yeah.
So, well, just, you got to cover all angles. We got to be fair here. All right. So I just want to ask a question here because I don't know. He keeps seeing the flip-flopping. He talks how it's not in his mother's name anymore, but then he talks about how he kept it in an estate.
Right.
So how did make this make sense? I don't know.
Well, the thing that we can verify is that probate is still an active case. And if probate is still an active case, that means the estate of Alice Helton is still active, has not been closed. Now, whether or not he could transfer the properties to his name, yeah, he probably could. There's probably a legal process for that. But again, he did that in 2024, fairly recently. And these taxes were assessed way back in January of 2023. That's why Alice Helton is on them. But as far as his estate still being there, yeah, maybe. I mean, probate's still going, so there is still an estate. Not because he wants there to be, because he hasn't done the things he needs to do to close the probate.
Right. So the estate of Alice Helton is still active. That's his active estate.
Yeah, you can look up the case right there on if you Google Kentucky court records and you go to Clay County and you put in Alice Helton, you can go right to the case. It's 22P something, 2022 P for probate, and then there's a case number. And you can see that it's in green, and that means it's an active case. Probate is not closed.
No, how I do it in Canada, I file my taxes. I pay somebody to do it. I think I got like 2,000 back last year.
We're not talking about income taxes,
Okay.
Cisco. God, you are so
So
stupid.
what is it? Property taxes?
We're talking about property taxes, not income taxes.
Okay,
Vaughn
well, I
doesn't
don't
have
own
income.
property.
So,
I pay rent. So
well,
you guys got to fill me
you
in.
mean you live with your parents? You mean?
It's not your concern. I know I don't.
No, yes, you've said you do. So why lie now?
Yeah, well, the point being is that Vaughn did live with his mother, and she died, and he hasn't paid taxes on the property.
Right. I think
And they're delinquent.
probably little Jim paid him in 2022.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when they were executors, right? But since his executorship took over, apparently he's spent that 30. Well, he has admitted he spent the $30,000 surviving on it.
Yep.
That isn't actually what the money was meant for. It was meant to go to taxes and stuff.
And that's a whole secondary issue because he's going to get in some big problems when this probate thing finally comes to a head. And they say, well, what happened to the money in the estate account? Oh, I bought lottery tickets. Well, you can't do that. You can't do that.
He won't even be able to account for a lot of the money.
Yeah,
but that,
it's a crime.
So maybe take this opportunity, Todd, if you don't mind, like what exactly is up for grabs here? It's a lien against the property. So
right. You buy what they call a tax delinquency certificate for each property. And that means you basically pay the tax plus all those ridiculous fees and commissions that all these county officials get, penalties, late fees, interest. You pay all that and you get a certificate that says you are owed, or you paid the tax and now you are owed this much. The property owner gets to stay on the property for the, what they call it, the redemption period, which in Kentucky is 365 days. He still has to pay the county the taxes, and the county will pay the third party purchaser back they will buy back the certificate. So, and then you can also add on lots of fees. You can add collection costs and of course interest. There's a 1% interest per month. So it's a little bit of an investment with the county government. You pay for these taxes and you get some money. You get your money back plus some interest. That's how people invest in these things. Now, if the rub comes, if he doesn't pay within 365 days, most general tax lien websites and informational videos will tell you at that point, you can foreclose on the property. But I've also heard that in Kentucky, at that point, it goes to a public auction of the property where maybe you get first dibs or something. But there's some information out there that they actually publicly auction the property at that point. And you would probably get your money back as a piece of that auction. So it's unclear whether he just gets it or
late on your taxes.
Yes, they will.
No,
they absolutely will.
Not.
And you can say no, they don't, but you can't demonstrate that. And I can demonstrate thousands of cases where people have had their properties seized by the government for tax delinquency.
Not because of 1 year, dum-dum.
Don't call me dum-dum because you don't know what you're talking about. It's not 1 year. This stuff was assessed January of 2023. It's almost a year and a half late.
And he will have January's 2004s coming up, etc. But I mean, the point being is that, okay, so if someone buys this, they get a certificate. It's an investment that in 365 days, they'll see this reimbursement. Well, they have up to 365 days. If not, then there's a possibility the land would go up for public auction, whereby hopefully the guy would get his money back, and it's probably sold for pennies on the dollar and all that kind of good stuff. So my question is, what happens if no one buys it in September?
That's a good question. I'm not real sure. I don't think he just gets to skate. I think the county at that point, the county would pursue some sort of collection to the sheriff or something like that. But they're obviously just not going to forget about it if nobody buys it. So I would think it would still remain the purview of the county to collect it at that point.
I think one thing Vaughn's banking on for the wrong reasons, but I do think he has a point in a different sense. And I was talking about somebody else with this. It is possible that he will skate for a while simply because in the grand scheme of things, it's a minuscule amount, but it'll accumulate to a point where it's actually worth it for them to pursue. Right. So right now, if it's going to cost them the same amount to collect on it, they're not that worried. They got nothing but time, right? They're not going to, but so.
Well, if I'm right, and it's really over 4,000 because of all the fees that have been added at this point and the commissions for various county officials that they get, that's 4,000 is a big deal for Vaughn. Remember, he only gets about 700 a month. He has two renters at 300, and Tim is paying 100. That's $700 a month, and he's got to buy food and he's got to pay his other bills.
Right.
I don't see how he's going to come up with $4,000.
And
It's
if
a
he has to
long
borrow,
way.
now he's got a loan he's paying back on top. Because
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
okay, let's say that in the bizarro Von Helton world, he was right and we rounded down to $2,000. In January, it's just going to be another $2,000
Correct.
or $1,500, whatever. Then all the late
Yeah.
fees, and it's just going to accumulate and build, and it's just going to be a big ball of fuck. So exactly like I predicted a year ago.
And by the way, that reminded me of one other thing. He kept talking about he got a deferment, and he said he got an extension about this tax. And that neither of those things exist. There is a calendar that the county operates by. It's due December 31st. January 1st, it becomes a 5% late fee. February 1st becomes a 10% late fee and a 10% fee for the sheriff. After April 15th, the sheriff sends it to the county clerk, and that's when we start throwing in other fees. So he can say he got an extension or a deferment all he wants. Those fees still accumulate. It doesn't mean anything. He's going to have 365 days to pay it off, and that's that. And like you said, this year's tax is coming due, actually becomes due in November 1st, and becomes late January 1st of 2025.
Right. Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very clear that it says property tax owners or property owners can continue to pay tax until the date of the sale. So yeah, he could pay it off tomorrow if he had the money. He could pay it off September 17th and avoid the sale. You can go.
Just
You
because
can
you're
go
working taxes doesn't mean it's for sale.
no,
the
the property,
lien-
the
the
property
lien
is
is-
not for sale. You're right.
Now the lien has been put up for sale. That's what we're talking about.
The tax debt is what's being sold. Someone can buy that, they can pay his taxes and own that debt, and then bond owes them back for that plus interest. That's not the property for sale. You're right. Worst case, you're stuck with the worst case that you actually do get the property if bond doesn't pay and you're stuck with it. That's worst case. You could try to find a buyer, I guess. Maybe the bigger properties would sell and you could get out of it that way.
Well, to be fair, let's even up it. Let's
Well,
say it
too
gets
big to be
out
fair,
of
it's gonna
control.
be,
10 grand. Let's say 10 grand you're held. I'm confident you could get way more than that for Vaughn's properties. I mean, it's Kentucky, it's low, but it's not, you're going to get your money back if you sell it. Someone will buy it.